name is William Sulton. I'm a trial lawyer. My practice is based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but I take cases all over the country.
Yeah. And I believe, are you still director of ACLU, Wisconsin?
I'm the board president of the American Civil Liberties Union of Wisconsin. So lawyer by day, ACLU board president by night. So I've got two full-time jobs.
Well, let's go to the hearsay level. Have you talked to people who've seen the video?
Yeah, I actually went and met somebody that saw the video that was honestly on Austin's side,
Okay.
and they confirmed that four people walked over to Carmelo 100%. Like they beeline to him. They weren't just briskly walking. They were walking with a mission and walked.
Well, keep in mind that verbal provocation is not a thing in Texas, right?
Okay.
So, that's why, when we say provocation, I mean, we're talking about a physical act, right?
Okay.
Somebody who pushes or shoves someone, right?
Yeah.
We're not talking about somebody who says something, so I think that is a very important distinction.
Oh, I would agree. And even if it were verbal, I could see a verbal cause could be, hey, as soon as I leave this meet, I'm going to go over and beat your girlfriend up, or something like that. It's like somebody who's threatening bodily harm to something, or something that's more tangible than don't mess with me. That's just my opinion, but hey, we'll see how it comes out. Well, I think we've had to deal with some of these people, the Austin supporters. We've had to deal with the basic differences between, actus reus and mens rea. And those are two basic concepts. Like, we can't even get past that step with these people. He said he did it. He's guilty. It's like, oh my God, can you just, can you just act like a human being?
Yeah, man, that's what gets me about it. That's what worries me about the jury selection. I mean, if you got people thinking like that, like he took a knife to a track meet, he killed somebody. No, like it's not that simple, obviously. But I think once you get into testimony and stuff like that, like they're gonna see that he defended himself. It's just gonna be hard because it was at a school. That is a pretty um big
I
hurdle to
mean,
jump
don't
over.
most fights involving young people happen at school or school
Yeah,
events? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know that makes it difficult, right?
I'm like, wait a minute. A cold-blooded killer or somebody's trying to kill somebody is not going to turn around and say, do you think he's going to be all right? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
So I think it also sort of reflects the nature of this, right? I mean, we're not talking about somebody who pulled out a gun and shot somebody, right? I mean, this is hand-to-hand situation, right?
And we can just run through what we want to talk about. And then I think it's going to be valuable exercise for someone who is still practicing and more active in the law versus someone who's like been there before and follows it, to kind of get some of these topics out. And I understand you've spoken with some people who are close to the story as well. So what I'll do at first is just very briefly run through what happened, just the basics. This is an incident that happened on, Pepper, could you put that down? Thank you. This is an incident that happened on April 2nd of this year in Frisco, Texas, which is a northern suburb. It is right above Plano, where I lived for a time about 20 some years ago. I was working a wireless project there as junior counsel. And so I know the area pretty well. It's like 3 miles from where I was, not even that far. So on April 2nd, there was a track meet. There were some weather advisories. It had been halted, and there were a couple of peaks of rain. And in between those peaks of rain, it was being held at a municipal stadium, which was shared by Memorial, and the other high school were involved. I can't think of the name of it right now, but these two high schools were having a track meet, Centennial and Memorial. And at the time, Karmelo Anthony stood under a tent or sat under a tent that was, belonged to the opposing team. I don't have all the instructions or the directions for what the policy was yet for those tents, but he was there. He was asked to leave by one of the twins. And at that time, the hunter, Metcalf, then went and got his brother, Austin, who outweighs him by maybe 40 pounds. And then Karmelo was back at the tent still. And I know, based on what I know that Austin came down to the tent and addressed Karmelo in some fashion. Hunter's admitted that he grabbed his backpack, that Austin grabbed the backpack, and then Hunter claimed that he turned his back, and then there was a physical altercation. During this altercation, his brother Austin was stabbed by Karmelo and subsequently succumbed to his injuries. And Karmelo, as I understand it, walked to the police car. He told the policeman, "I did it." And he asked if Austin was going to be okay. And he asked if he could be considered self-defense. And these are just the basics of what happened there. Now, since that time, I understand people have watched the video, and I put out a request for people who have seen the video to be candid about what they saw. I have not had anybody from Austin's camp describe it to me. I've had people who support Karmelo, two of them describe it, that there were 4 assailants, basically, and that they feel it's self-defense. And with that, I'll turn it over to you. I think you have some familiarity. You've spoken with people today. What are your thoughts at first blush?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it sounds like an all-around bad experience at what should have been, a good experience at a track meet in high school. But certainly, what has been described to me was a 4-on-1 situation. And if that is the situation, it's difficult to imagine how this was not a self-defense scenario. Obviously, we need more facts. We need to talk to the other kids that were there. Definitely need to look at all of the video footage. I understand that some video has been shown, but I think there's probably more video. But self-defense cases are quite common around the country. And I would expect, the judge to be familiar with the law, the lawyers to be familiar with the law, and the jury to be properly instructed.
Absolutely. Let's cover a couple of topics that I think are outstanding that people want to talk about. And by the way, I have not really introduced you yet. If you would go ahead and do that yourself, I think you're better at it than I am.
My name is William Sulton. I'm a trial lawyer. My practice is based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but I take cases all over the country.
Yeah. And I believe, are you still director of ACLU, Wisconsin?
I'm the board president of the American Civil Liberties Union of Wisconsin. So lawyer by day, ACLU board president by night. So I've got 2 full-time jobs.
Absolutely. So what I want to focus on, most of the topics seem to, and I'm going to set aside for a moment, if we can, the ultimate issue of how many people were involved in this fracas. But a lot of people have been honing in on provocation. Now, I've looked at provocation. I have my idea about what it is, but I'd rather it come from someone who's still practicing actively. And your thoughts on provocation in Texas. It's a 3-part test. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on provocation and if it really matters in this case.
Yeah, I mean, provocation could matter, but I think what's important to keep in mind about cases that, in which provocation is an issue is that even if you provoke a fight, you can still regain the privilege of self-defense. And I think that scenario is something that does come into play in a lot of cases, which is why looking at the video footage and talking to the other kids that were there is going to be important to determine exactly what happened here. I know it's been a flashpoint, at least online, about whether there was provocation or not. But I actually think that, you really got to look at the entire scenario to see whether provocation is really, the predominant issue in the case.
Yeah, I would agree. And then there's the tripartite test is did the defendant use words to provoke the attack? Were those words reasonably calculated to provoke an attack? And then were those words used as a subterfuge to allow the defendant to attack and kill someone or hurt them? And, to my mind, if I hear those words, we've all been teenagers before, we've all been around, and, it is kind of a dare. But if I hear those words, I'm thinking to myself, well, wait a minute, maybe I better not put my hands on that person because that's illegal. And then they might have, grounds to really come back and hurt me. But that's just me. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know.
Well, keep in mind that verbal provocation is not a thing in Texas, right?
Okay.
So, that's why, when we say provocation, I mean, we're talking about a physical act, right?
Okay.
Somebody who pushes or shoves someone, right?
Yeah.
We're not talking about somebody who says something, so I think that is a very important distinction.
Oh, I would agree. And even if it were verbal, I could see a verbal cause could be, hey, as soon as I leave this meet, I'm going to go over and beat your girlfriend up, or something like that. It's like somebody who's threatening bodily harm to something, or something that's more tangible than don't mess with me. That's just my opinion, but hey, we'll see how it comes out.
Well, certainly, I think, there are some statements that are quite common colloquially, right?
Mm-hmm.
Touch me and find out, for example. That kind of a statement doesn't warrant physical aggression by the other side, right? And that isn't provocation under Texas law, right? And so, again, I think exactly what people are saying occurred, I think is really important here to getting at. But if the assertion is that, somebody says something that causes somebody else to throw a punch, no, that it doesn't work that way, right? You can't provoke an attack with your words unless there was some extraordinary circumstance.
Well, yeah, and I think one of the things that some of the Austin supporters classically would say is if somebody calls you an N-word and then you react, they would say, "Oh no, sticks and stones, man. You didn't have a right to react."
No, the N-word's different though, right? Because N-word is fighting words.
Well,
so that's different.
I would agree, but I'm just saying what they would say. Right.
Well, I think their version of events is simply different than the version of events provided by others. And, this could be that they're lying, right? It could be that their perception is wrong, right? I mean, one of the things we know is that people who experience things, rarely are able to accurately describe them, right? And then you add the fact that these are kids, right? Their kids generally are less reliable witnesses than adults, right? And then you add all the other things: stress, anxiety, speed, exhilaration, right? All of these things can affect their memory and perception of exactly what happened.
Yeah, and see, and the interesting part of all this too is that I still don't have any statements from anybody in Austin's camp that conclusively say I saw the video and it happened any other way than those four people in his proximity. I can't find anybody who said it. So maybe that day will come, maybe the video will be released. But what I do know is there were a couple of Tiffany's who were very actively involved in making that video come to light in the first place. Tiffany Billions and other people with her group that I think have been working with the family. And they were the ones who caused those videos to come. The one video that was released for viewing caused it to come to light. And then at some point, I've heard that, well, I do know that someone tried to videotape it and then they posted it to one of the TikTok or one of the social media sites. And that much I do know happened. I don't know if it was an Austin supporter or not. It's been rumored that it was. I can't say either way, but the public is no longer allowed to go view the video. So it's going to sit there, I guess, until trial.
Or until somebody issues a subpoena demanding its production, right? And I think that's an important piece too. I mean, I think there's a lot in the public ether, and I think protecting the good name and reputation of clients is important. And I think there's a real question here on exactly what happened, and there's a lot of public interest, and I think the public should have an opportunity to look at some of these materials.
Yeah, I think there is an active gag order, and in this case, and I think it probably does apply to the families. I would assume the attorneys have, obviously got this discovery back, and basic, criminal defense discovery. I'm sure they have it, but I think there is a gag order. That's why I said it'll probably wait until trial, till the public can see it, unfortunately. So that's kind of is what it is there. A couple other points I wanted to cover with you. People have made issue of Karmelo's statements. Let's talk about Miranda for a second. Those 3 statements that were made. Yes, I did it. Will he be? I wonder, will he be okay? And can I use this? Do you think this is self-defense? I have my thoughts about that. And again, this happened. I do not believe that Karmelo was subject to a custodial interrogation at the time. I think he was walking to the cruiser, or they had arrived at the cruiser. I don't think the police had questioned him yet. That's as far as I know. But what are your thoughts on that? Oh,
Yeah, I mean, you have to be in custody for Miranda to apply, right? So, if you know, if you're not in custody, then your statements can be used. And these, but the statements that are attributed to him, in my view, are not all that damaging.
I didn't think they were. I thought they could go the other way. But before we get to that point, let's go back to custody, because like he was not free to leave. Let's admit that. But he was not being questioned either. So I think in Texas, especially, I think what he said is coming in. But let's examine each statement, because you go first.
Yeah, I mean, I think the statements, I did it, it's fine. I mean, it's on video, right? Um, you know, do you think this is self-defense is an indication that he believes that it's self-defense, right? Um, I mean, I don't view those as inculpatory statements.
I didn't either. And I think the one that could be exculpatory is the one, is he going to be all right? So these people are trying to say that this guy, calculated this, kind of like this, like Case and Allison did, like calculated this fight. He knew that Austin's going to come down from another area, and all this is going to happen, or that he fomented specific intent in that flash second. All these arguments are being made, and I'm like, wait a minute. A cold-blooded killer, or somebody who's trying to kill somebody, is not going to turn around and say, "Do you think he's going to be all right?" I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Unless he's calculating.
Yeah, and I think it also sort of reflects the nature of this, right? I mean, we're not talking about somebody who pulled out a gun and shot somebody, right? I mean, this is hand-to-hand situation, right? And I imagine that there was surprise and shock associated with this event, right? We have a similar case going on here in Wisconsin with a young man who I think you could argue initially provoked the attack, but subsequently turned and ran away, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then was grabbed. And, I guess the argument is that he regained self-defense and pulls out a small knife and defends himself. And, it's just a freak accident, but he got a person in the wrong spot and the
Right.
person perished, right?
Right. But he had abandoned it by fleeing. Whatever the
right. But my point is, I think he was in that case too, where there were similar statements made.
Mm-hmm.
I think those statements were made because it was kind of like the person was surprised by the impact, because it was an unusual thing. You wouldn't expect someone with a pocket knife to cause that level of damage. It was sort of a freak accident, right? And I imagine that was a similar feeling here, that it was kind of like, well, hey, it's probably going to be all right.
Yeah. We've got someone's joined us. Are you coming in, sir?
Oh yeah, sorry, my bad. I was telling my son to feed his dog. Yeah, it's Phalon, bro. What's up?
Oh, good. Phalon, introduce yourself to the group, which consists of me and the counselor. But we're glad you're here. We were gonna have this chat regardless of who shows up, because it's important. Yeah, hop right in, brother.
Yeah, what's up, William? I'm Phalon. I'm a audio engineer, social media kind of personality. Like, I post content about like social news and stuff. And yeah, I've been investing in this case since April, man.
So, well, you missed a lot of our discussions earlier on. What I really wanted to focus on, if more people had showed up who'd seen the video, have you seen the video?
No, I have not seen the video.
No. Okay.
No.
Well, let's go to the hearsay level. Have you talked to people who've seen the video?
Yeah, I actually went and met somebody that saw the video that was honestly on Austin's side.
Okay.
And they confirmed that 4 people walked over to Karmelo 100%. Like, they beeline to him. They weren't just, briskly walking. They were walking with a mission and walked straight over to Karmelo and directly addressed him. or immediately addressed them.
Right. And so, as I understand that, that was precipitated by Hunter going to get Austin, correct?
I didn't get that from it. I think they said it started the video 9 minutes from the altercation, and it just showed the boys walking back from the middle school over to the tent.
Okay, got you there. Okay. And at the time, could you tell, and there were two rain peaks, and we do know that the event was suspended for weather conditions. And
Yeah.
there were two rain peaks. Do you know if it was misting in between those peaks when Karmelo went to sit under the tent?
She said it was misting, like it wasn't full on raining or even like sprinkling, but it was just like lightly raining, like as light as could be.
Okay, okay. But the meet had not resumed, so people were kind of milling about.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what she said. Yeah.
Okay, I'm curious about the policy in fact, and ultimately, I don't think this is a huge deal to start with, but we'll get to that in a minute. I'm curious about the policy in fact, well, the policy, written policy and policy in fact, when it comes to the use of these tents by opposing teams under a central stadium, because it was neither high school was involved. There was a central state stadium that neither one of them was their home stadium, as I understand it. What do you know that policy to be, and have you seen students mill about in other opposing areas?
From what I've seen, I gotta check it again because I don't think these UIL rules are rarely available. But I think they only have rules like governing seats. They don't say you can't go to an opposing team's tent. They just have rules about, I guess, seating. I don't know what the exact rules are, to be honest. I have to check that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have they were closed. The office was closed until today, and I was busy with work today, so I couldn't ask. I was going to try to get those files, and I have requested the files for the cameras too, not for the video themselves, but for the design drawings to show where all the cameras are, because I think they only have one viewpoint, right?
They only show one viewpoint, but I doubt they only have one like CCTV camera. Or
They've got a network. Janina, I believe her name is, had shown a clip where she went to various points in the stadium. So I know they've got several cameras. And so, William and I would assume that people, the defense counsel's got all the shots, and we'll get to that at some point. William, do you have any questions at this point?
No, I mean, well, yeah, I mean, I got, I'd like to know the order of operations here. What happened, when, by whom?
I meant for this guest in particular. I didn't. Yeah.
Oh, no. I guess. What are you hearing more broadly from the public on the case? What is the sentiment?
What am I hearing broadly on the case? I mean, I hear from some people that are on Karmelo's side that when they seen the video, they saw multiple people putting hands on Karmelo.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't hear the Austin supporters talk about the video at all, ever. And that's pretty alarming to me, to be honest. I mean, I was supposed to go see the video. I live in Texas, but I obviously didn't because the girl got shut down. I really wish I would have, but I think Karmelo's gonna walk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've been very. What's interesting to me is the level of hate that people are coming at me with, because I have openly said I don't know, and he might be guilty. I'm just asking questions, and you've seen it. This is crazy.
Yeah, no, I think that that side that that the Metcalfs tried to control the narrative from the jump. With doing a news interview the day he passed, and continuously doing interviews and being so active on social media. They've been. I mean, his mom has joined panels. Austin Metcalf's mom has joined panels. Jeff Metcalf's dad joined a panel and said racist stuff, and then stayed on for 14 hours after that. And it's the reporters have dropped the Anthony's address on Twitter to 200,000 followers, and admitted this to me personally. Like, I've talked to this lady too, and it's sad.
Yeah.
The lengths they're going to try to convict this young man, which it makes me suspicious.
And to harass the family, that could be a conspiracy to violate civil rights.
100%.
Under 42 U.S. Code 1985. That's a conspiracy if that's happening. And so You brought up something else I wanted to key on too. You were just saying about how they the Metcalfs. Oh, the N bombs. Yeah, I heard the one when Jeff Metcalf called that woman an N dash B dash. Yes,
Yeah,
yes, he did.
yeah.
And someone, I think he did it another time too. So that begs the question. And I know Karmelo has not said this, but nobody's spoken. They've kept tight lips, but it begs the question of whether or not some N bombs were used in before all the physical altercation happened.
We know at the very least some B bombs, some cussing happened. It wasn't, this two 17-year-old boys. We know some disrespectful language was said. I mean, was that probably said? I mean, these kids nowadays, I will believe it. I'm not gonna put that on the kid saying that he's, dropping N bombs, but hey, the dad did it so easily.
Yeah, there's an inference. That's all I'll give it. I'm not saying, oh, that's conclusively
Yeah.
the kid followed like that, but there's an inference there for sure, for sure. What else about this?
But I mean, William, you're a lawyer. You're an attorney.
Oh, very much so.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. See, he's not even worried about none of this. He wants to talk about the law.
We cover a lot of that. Yeah, but I'm just all these details factor into it. So yeah, William and I broke a lot of stuff down before you got here. But
yeah, I do. I will say this though. I do care about public perception. Often when I'm representing clients, I'm greatly concerned about their good name and reputation, and particularly when they're charged with a crime that's often damaged. And so I find myself wanting to address that stuff squarely, right?
Yeah. But so like, have you read Chapter 9 in the Texas statute?
Yes.
Okay, so I hear a lot of people, and I argue with people about this all the time. They say that you have to meet, deadly force with deadly force, and they're saying you have to qualify for 9.32 before 9.31, and I'm like, no, 9.31 says you can use force that you deem reasonable, and that's ambiguous as opposed to 9.32. Am I correct on it?
You are correct. And also keep in mind, when we talk about deadly force, we're not talking about a firearm, right? Anytime you use a firearm, it's deadly force, right? A knife, I mean, that's not always deadly force, right? So the fact that the consequence is death, those are different concepts, right? Is what I'm saying.
Exactly. You've got this hand-to-hand combat. You're trying to get out, save your life, and you reach out. And this dovetails with what I read about how Karmelo allegedly stared his victim in the eyes and then stabbed him. If you think about that, that's ludicrous, because think about, you don't have leverage. I mean, sure, you might, but try to stab somebody going forward while you look in their eyes. It doesn't. I would think that they were wrestling and it was more of a backwards motion, because that's where you have all the torque. That probably happened. That's just my thought. But there's all this drama that I want to stay on the public perception issue too. I guess we might as well hop to the last question. Maybe we'll come back and circulate again. But this whole public perception issue, and it's the thing that nobody wants to deal with on the Metcalf camp. But I'll tell you what, and this is my position: if the roles were reversed, and you had a smaller white kid, they're all athletes, but you had a smaller white kid walk into that area, a larger black kid goes to get his bigger yet twin, and let's leave the other people out of it. Let's just say it's just those three. He comes down and starts grabbing stuff and gets in somebody's face, and then the white kid stabs him. I'll tell you what, 98.9% of those Metcalf people are going to say, they're going to say he got what he had coming to him.
Yeah, and it's like, they always hate when we point back to Case and Allison's case. And it's like, William, you as an attorney, knowing that Case had planned that fight later, but got into the fight, in the bathroom, was supposedly locked. I haven't seen the transcripts, but he was supposedly locked in the bathroom. With him receiving that criminally negligent homicide, would you see that as a W, being his defense attorney? Would you see that as a win?
I mean, no. I mean, I think a win is freedom, but it's not a bad outcome, I guess is the way I would put it.
Yeah, and I told William about the case today, about Case, and he was not aware of the specifics of it. But correct me if I'm wrong. You've probably read more about Case than I have. But I thought that there was definitely proof, written proof, that Case had planned this fight and that they knew each other. I don't hear anybody saying that at Frisco that they knew each other, but these two kids knew each other. They had beef, and this was kind of definitely planned, and that's your understanding as well, sir.
Who?
For you, sir. Yes.
You saying me?
Yes.
That it was planned. That they had planned a fight later, but they
Mhm.
didn't plan that fight.
Okay.
That's how I understand it.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Just because like I say, I'm just here to ask questions and learn myself. There's things I don't know about these, and people have been closer to it than I have. I'm just having the freedom to have a discussion, like Charlie Kirk said, right? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, and the knife thing too. The knife thing is so easily argued. I mean, like he wasn't committing a crime. We know that.
Well, I think we've had to deal with some of these people, the Austin supporters. We've had to deal with basic differences between, actus reus and mens rea, and those are two basic concepts.
Mm,
Like we can't even get past that step with these people. He said he did it. He's guilty. It's like, oh my
yeah,
God, can you just, yeah, can you just act like a human being?
yeah, man. That's what gets me about. That's what worries me about the jury selection. I mean, that's just. I mean, if you got people thinking like that, like he took a knife to a track meet. He killed somebody. No. Like it's not that simple, obviously. But I think once you get into testimony and stuff like that, like they're gonna see that he defended himself. It's just gonna be hard because it was at a school. That is a pretty um big
I
hurdle to
mean,
jump
don't
over.
most fights involving young people happen at school or school
Yeah,
events? I mean,
yeah.
I don't know that makes it difficult, right?
Mm,
You can easily say, hey, my client was wrong for bringing a weapon to an event, but he was not wrong for using it, right? And I think I just think that's a function of life, right?
yeah.
Um,
Oh, Dwayne's
but
here. Now it's getting good. No, Dwayne's already good, but here comes Dwayne now.
that's fine. I understand. I'm chopped liver.
Nah, nah, man.
You the man. You the man. Here's Dwayne now coming in. On this issue, what you were just talking about.
Let me mute up.
I was explaining this sort of concept that somebody can be wrong for being somewhere, but not be wrong for deciding to use force.
Oh yeah,
Right?
you got that's
Exactly.
malum say malum prohibitum. It's like, oh, malum prohibitum, you shouldn't have that knife there, but it's not malum say that you had the knife there. It saved your life. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then what? Okay, so in commission of a crime, right? So when they say you can't be in commission of a crime, claim self-defense, do they mean in general, like, oh, I can't possess like an illegal substance, or I can't be in committing a crime against somebody? Like, what does that mean from your understanding?
Yeah, I mean, so first off, we're getting way too scholarly, right? I mean, a jury is not going to view the case that way, but
Right.
generally, when we're talking about actively committing a crime, we're not talking about somebody illegally possessing marijuana and then all of a sudden they find themselves in a fight scenario and now they don't get self-defense because they were possessing marijuana. No. The law isn't
Mm,
that perverse, right?
mm, okay.
So so I don't think the fact that he had a knife and that maybe it was illegally possessed, I don't think that means he doesn't have a self-defense claim.
Not at all. And even on the knife charge, Kaysen, I think that, and maybe you know this better than I do. Did Kaysen got a lesser included of having illegal knife, didn't he?
No, he got a deadly weapon enhancement, right? And so it took you from a state jail felony, which is 6 months to 2 years, to a third felony, which is 2 to 10. He got maxed.
But they used the knife to max him out, you're saying?
Yeah, they use a knife to enhance him from a state jail felony to a third degree. It's like from a fourth degree to a third degree felony,
For fourth to third. Okay, in Texas. Okay, thank you.
which
Okay.
is, yeah.
Thank you. Interesting. And so, do we know the length of the knife that he had, the Kaysen had? I
It
tried to
was
look.
it was under 5.5 inches because over 5.5 inches, it's a felony, I believe, at school
Yeah, ipso facto, it
or
had to
at
be
a
under 5.5 for that to be the. Yeah, I get you. Perfect, perfect. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Copy. Very good. Very good. Yeah, I think it's a moot point, really, especially look if they, and I think if Karmelo is acquitted, I doubt they're going to bring a knife charge. I don't know. I don't know what to say. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But at that point, it seems rather petty to try to run the knife charge. But who knows? You know, prosecutors have been known to be petty. Ham sandwiches have been indicted. You know. Yeah. So, I mean, really, I guess that's pretty much what I had. We've covered most of everything. It was just kind of an opportunity to get some of the thoughts out. And I think as the case develops, oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry that Dwayne left because he had done some research into what's her face, the reporter, Sarah. Uh, what's her name?
Sarah Fields. Yeah, she got a little pass.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just looking. I'm not so concerned about. I mean, I read something last year about her that she admitted that she said something was kind of false, and I mean that was a little bit of a false alarm. Especially because the way that William and I met for the second time is because he's actually my lawyer on a defamation case, which is going nowhere. But so I read with Sarah that she was involved in it earlier. But what I was concerned about is, and I think Dwayne had done this work, this issue with Melanie, the court clerk. Tell me what you know about that. The Melanie, I guess, released information, and I think Dwayne indicated that the clerk was fired for leaking the information. I could not actually verify that. What do you know about that situation?
Um, Man, I think that I mean we know for sure she was giving out information. I mean, she was looking up information. She was and I think she was passing it to Sarah because she commented on her under her post and said DM me. And she did have to take a forced leave of absence.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know she got fired, but I guess she did get fired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did see that message the other day because like I said, I've been just really trying to get up to speed on this, and that was half the purpose of this was to get people who boots on the ground there who could educate me as to some of the realities, you know, because it's so hard to filter through. When you know, we all have day jobs, and we're trying to like what's going on, right? Uh,
Yeah, but no, I believe it, man. Texas, I'm in a small counties in Texas. I don't think Collin County is a small county, but still, like they're all like, they go to church together. They they're in the golf club together. They go out to eat together. I mean, these people hang out.
mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm.
mean, it is what it is. And then she's a precinct chair. She ran like unopposed, so she's in politics. She's in her government, so to speak.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. I mean, she said, "Hey, Karmelo Anthony will be indicted," and then the next day he got indicted. I mean, there's no question about that. Like she has inside information.
Sure. Letitia James, anybody? Let's try three
Yeah,
times. Yeah, sure, sure, sure. Oh, well, you know what? That brings us to a really good point for closure, okay? Because this is part of this talk is like social phenomenon and how does society view things and how can we move forward as a society, you know? And I think you've seen me online. I fall prey to this thing sometimes where I go off against the crackers and I get pretty angry, and I'll put it out there. And I think I'm given what I get, to tell you the truth. But am I proud of that? Not necessarily. Um, but you know, it's so hard to make your online life resemble your other life because, like, trust me, everybody in this neighborhood is white. All right, like half my family is white, and there's no issue there, right? But you get these clowns on Facebook and in social media who come at you, and then it's like we're in this defensive position where, okay, if we dare strike back, now we're militant, now we're this, now we're that. I'm trying to figure out how do we craft a solution to get to a better America out of all of this. And I really don't know. I feel like the future is bleak given the way that the Austin supporters have acted. I mean, most Karmelo supporters are like, hey, maybe he's guilty, maybe he's not, but give it a chance. The Austin camp is like, like that Boondocks thing with Uncle Ruckus, that they're guilty. And God, what do you think?
I mean, what do you think about this though, right?
Hmm.
So if you're designated a victim anywhere in the country, right, you have a prosecutor's office that tells you, hey, the defendant did it, right? I mean, that's going to have an impact, right? Because it's got the strength of the government behind it, right? And
Sure.
so I'm not so sure they're in the same position, right? And I've often said in cases that I've handled, hey, keep in mind that these people believe what the prosecution is telling them. And so this trial is actually a good thing because it's going to show them that the prosecutor didn't do his or her homework or was sloppy or whatever. So I think it's probably hard for those folks who have been told things from the prosecutor that, you know, maybe aren't true, maybe aren't supported by physical evidence or otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's really important for, I know it's got to be so painful, for both families and everything, but once if the truth is as indicated that we just heard, I really think it's incumbent of everybody to just admit that that's what happened and try to work so that it just doesn't happen again,
Well, I think there are two things, right? So, thing one is, what are the independent facts, right? And where are the disputes? And then thing two is, hey, even if we can agree on the facts, you still have to determine whether it's reasonable or not, right? And that reason, and that's what, and again, I don't know the case in case as well as you guys do, but that was the issue, at least from what I can see online, is that the jury said that it wasn't altogether reasonable, right? So he was negligent, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because of the catastrophe, he got 10 years, right? And so really I think that's an important piece. What are the facts, number one? And see if there are any disputes there. And then number two is, was it reasonable or was it not? Right. And I think you got to put your mind not in the mind of somebody who's got legal training and is 42 years old, but instead the mind of a teenager,
Oh yeah.
right? Who's
Mm-hmm.
probably scared.
Mm-hmm.
And so that to me is, I think, what makes these cases difficult. Because I think what a not guilty represents is doubt about the reasonableness of the use of force, or it could represent that, right? As opposed to, hey, I think he was 100% in the right. You know what I mean? And I think those are totally different concepts. And I would say there are no winners here,
Right.
right? Everybody loses. The only question is whether this young man goes to prison or not, right? Like that's the only question we're deciding.
Yeah. And what I'm getting at is like, I don't want a society where it just seems so steeped, where it's so polemic. I've always approached this like, I don't know. And I want a society, maybe it's wishful thinking, where the polemics don't exist, especially in a situation where we don't know yet. It just doesn't, it's just, how did we get there? I really don't know.
Right. But I had a case today, as a matter of fact, where I was talking to someone
Mm-hmm.
where, you've got a federal prosecutor who says, I have video evidence of this thing,
Yeah.
and he doesn't, right?
Uh-huh.
But people rely on that statement, right? And then they make all these decisions, in their mind, hey, this happened because this person who's in a position to know says that they do know this happened and that it's supported by video evidence. It just isn't.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And so that's, that's part of it, right? And I think we have to keep that in mind, that in a lot of these cases, it doesn't always come down to disputes of facts. It really comes down to philosophical differences, right? And different attitudes about different contexts. That's why, when the gentleman was talking about jury selection, that's why jury selection is so important.
Right. Right. That's so funny.
How can somebody, you know understand the context, right? If I have a case with all Spanish speaking people, right? You know, I have to explain that context. Otherwise, I'm missing something,
Right,
right?
right, right.
Um, and what I often tell young lawyers and even other young professionals, right? As I say that, bring Black culture to what you do in your profession in the same way that you would expect that to be brought in sports and film, right?
Mm.
Because that's important and people need to know because otherwise they don't know, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's funny you brought that up because I had just written down there was a minute ago. I was looking for something that I wanted to talk about, and I had just written that down. I don't know if you can see it, Batson. So I'll let William explain it and how it's working for you out in Wisconsin. But I've only tried like four or five civil cases, and I had a Batson challenge on two of them. So what it is, guys, is there's for cause strike jurors, to get to the small pool, and there's peremptories, okay? And so within those, you can have the for cause is different, but the peremptories are where you just say, I don't want number 6, I don't want number 8, okay? But if you see somebody doing that on a racial basis or on other kinds of basis, I think race was the primary focus of a Batson challenge, but that's kind of where it goes. So illuminate us on how Batson has worked out for you, William. There have you
Not well.
not
So,
well.
Wisconsin, it's hard to get a minority juror. And I meant
Mm.
what I said, a minority
Hey,
juror
yeah, right.
in
Even
any
even just one?
county, even just one in any
Oh.
county or in any of the district courts. It's difficult to get just one. Most trials are to all white juries, period.
Mhm.
Mm.
Um, I will tell you about, interestingly, a couple of years ago, I had a trial in Washington, D.C., and I had a defense lawyer make a Batson challenge against me, claiming that I was on a racial basis, I was striking white jurors because in DC, we ended up with a majority minority jury,
Yeah,
right?
Chocolate City. Yeah, sure.
And so I thought
Mm.
that was interesting.
Yeah,
That I got a Batson challenge.
yeah,
But it just shows you the differences around the country on how it is. But in a place like the Midwest, and this is, probably true in Michigan outside of Detroit, um, probably true in Illinois outside of Chicago, right? You're taught, if you've got an African American, Hispanic, Asian client, the likelihood of finding anyone else of color is really low outside of one of the major cities. But even in Milwaukee, which is the most populous African American district,
hmm
I had a case recently where
hmm
it was an all white jury that decided a case involving my Black client, and you know that's not uncommon
right,
because of
right,
the way the population is here. So if you're looking, but it's not just race, although race
right.
is a huge component, don't get me wrong,
Yeah, yeah.
right? But it's also, if you've got a bunch of like, white collar workers, for example, and you've got, blue collar client, right?
Yeah.
Or you've got an issue that's blue collar, that can play a role, right? I've had an all male jury.
hmm
I had 11 women on a jury once. That one was actually one of the best juries I had. But, you end up with these sort of situations where, it's a real question. Can you understand this person's experience? And how much work does a lawyer now have to do given that, right?
hmm
And I think that's important. Like for example, let's say you had all private school, every juror was, attended a private school. That would be terrible for a case like this, right? And so, those are the kinds of things you need to know and you kind of need to figure out.
Yeah.
But I think, but I think, or attitudes about self-defense, like how many people have been in a fight?
hmm
Were
Serious fight,
those
right. Yeah.
fights as an adult or as a kid? Have you ever been jumped before, right? I mean, I think that changes sort of how you might see some of this stuff.
Yeah, and Batson was
Um,
born from race, but it extends far past race. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, Batson, I think, I think we need a new formulation, if I'm going to be honest, right? I
Hmm.
mean, I think you should be able to make a challenge as soon as the panel comes up. I don't think you should have to wait for somebody to strike. I think you should be able to say, hey, look, based on the demography of this group right now, I know that I'm not going to get, a good cross section, of the jury, right? And
Right. So
so
then you're
bring in a
arguing
new
that.
panel.
So you're arguing that. Oh, right. Bring it from right then before we even go to voir dire or none of that. You're saying.
Right,
Oh, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Because I mean, you can tell. I mean, you can tell when they come up, right?
You-
And I think that's really when you should start complaining about it.
yeah.
Um, but I think too often in this country, right, and certainly in Wisconsin, where you have minority defendants who are being tried all white juries, and they feel like that's not fair, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think it is either. And I
Yeah.
think judges don't think it's fair either. But I think everybody just sort of throws their hands up and says, well, what can we do?
Yeah,
Right.
that's what I was going to ask. Like, were they if they pulling the jury pool for this event? I guess it's got to come from that county. I think for it's not federal court, state court issue. I guess it's got to come from that county. Now, having lived there, like I live like 2 miles from Frisco. Okay, so my memory, and it's been like 20. I was there in 2000. That's a quarter of a century. But in my experience, it wasn't a whole lot of people of color up there in that area. Now I'm sure it's changed over the years, but I wouldn't know what I haven't looked up the percentages. I need to take a look at that. But I think they do pull from the county in general. Is that right, William? When they do jury pools?
Well, I think it depends on the jurisdiction, but most states in the state court system pull from the Department of Motor Vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
Most federal courts are pulling from the voter rolls.
Got it. But what about the geographic element?
Yeah, I mean, if you're in a county courthouse, you're getting people from that county,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're in a
Right.
federal courthouse, you're getting people pulled from normally, I would say, I guess it depends on distance, right? So I don't know that you could say 8 counties, for example, because in some states, 8 counties is really big, and in others it's really small.
Sure.
Colorado is unique because they only have one district court, right? Even though it's a really big state in terms of geography, right? So, you end up with these, situations, right? But there's no question that I would say on the whole, right, around the country, this is a huge problem, right, in terms of getting people that look like you on the jury if you are, Black, Hispanic, American Indian, or Asian. I mean, the likelihood of you having somebody that looks like you on that jury is quite low. I mean, unless you're in certain places in the South and Washington D.C.
Yeah. I'll share this one thing with you before we sign off. So it's a one-time story. I'm in Hamilton, Ohio, which they nickname Hamiltucky. All right. And the population there is somewhat mixed. All right. There are plenty of Black people there, but they just call it Hamiltucky because it's got a certain reputation, right? Anyway, so this client of mine was arrested for DUI, and I didn't want to take his case at first. He ran after me in court. He says, Mr. King, I want to talk to you. And he says, I got this DUI. And I said, I don't do those. I go, I'm not good enough to do those. He says, you don't understand. He goes, I wasn't drinking. And I go, you mean you hadn't had a lot to drink? He's like, no, I haven't had a drink in 8 years. So I says, well, what's going on with that? And he explained to me what had happened. And it was 1996. He was driving a new North Star Cadillac, and the cop pulled him over. And all this stuff happens in front of his mother's Civic Award-winning garden, for Christ's sakes, right? And so it's raining out, and Michael's like he was 42 years old at the time. He's a bigger guy. He's not athletic. And so instead of doing like the mental gymnastics for the sobriety test, he makes him like basically do the Steve Martin thing, like, when he stands on the side of the road and all this stuff. And so he fails, he takes him in, and Michael says to the guy, I know the only reason, and his brother was with him. And he says, I know the only reason you pulled me over is because I was driving that North Star. And he says, but let me tell you how you could get you one of those North Stars. The joke was he had a Cadillac. The North Star was a rental. Anyway, so he was going to tell you, go down to Avis and rent you one, right? And they got pissy with him and started choking the guy, right? So I go to my friend's dad, who's I knew in prep school, he's an ear, nose, throat guy, and I get him to write up a thing saying there's permanent damage, right? So eventually the civil side settles, but on the criminal side, they made sure to keep one little traffic thing in, so we had to go to state court, right? And so the jury part of it, we won, but the judge retained jurisdiction over one of them and still dinged him. But the bottom line is this: 2-day trial and over a speeding ticket, right? So 2 whole days, and there was a juror that didn't make the petit jury. All right, so I noticed that the guy, he stayed. All right, both days. He came back the next day. And then the next day he had his wife with him. And so after the trial, when we won the criminal part, we're walking out. The guy walks up to me and he taps me on the back and he goes, Attorney King, I just got to tell you this. I brought my wife in here today because I wanted to tell her. I said, look, that nigger's got to get him a fair trial. And you did that for him. And I was like, bet. So it's like, and it's like, I am not insulted by his use of an N-bomb in the least. I wanted to take him out to dinner. I don't care about that. I really don't. It was a riot, though, that happened that way. So I don't know what the moral of that story is, but it was something that just popped into my mind.
Well, you're explaining sort of the reverse issue, which is how unusual it is to see a black lawyer in the courthouse, and how it has an impact on people. And I've experienced that too, right? What do you mean you're not the defendant?
yeah, right. Right. You got real good English, right?
Right. Well, code switching is a real thing. So
yeah. Well, we have a duty to be as professional as we can in the public light. I certainly wander from that on Facebook, but but that is what it is. It's its own medium, doesn't. But I guess that's all I got, man. You guys got anything else before we wind down?
Nope. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, no, I don't have anything. Thank you for the insight, William.
Yeah, and thank you for your insight too. You're closer to it than we are. So with that, folks, I'll wind down, and until we meet again, auf Wiedersehen.
Later.
All right, peace.